Dakota State Extension economist Frayne Olson is our market analyst this week. We talked with Frayne Thursday morning about selling strategies for corn going into harvest, the current condition of spring wheat, and the big soybean price swings this week, especially from the September contract.
Well, as we move to the end of the expiration date for the September contract, that's also the switching from old crop into new crop. The old crop supplies are still relatively tight. We have some concerns about making sure that the ending stocks balance sheet numbers work out appropriately. So we're seeing some juggling going on at the last minute here. Really, I think a lot of farmers right now are primarily focused on the new crop contracts.
Do you feel the demand market has remained strong for soybeans?
Well, so far it has. Actually, if you look at the forward bookings or forward sales for 2014 soybeans, we're up about 5% from this time last year, which is a nice number to be at. The surprising thing is that actually the Chinese orders have been down a bit from last year. So my suspicion is with the large size of the South American crop, the expectation for a very large crop here in the U.S., China being our major export destination, is sitting back and waiting to see what the numbers finally turn out to be.
If you're looking for a little bit of a bounce in the short term, where could that come from?
Yeah, one of the things that we're still looking at, especially in the northern plains or the northern growing region for the soybeans, at least in North Dakota, we had a very wide planting window. We had kind of a tough spring, and some of the soybeans that were planted were also planted very, very late. The other thing that's happened, again, both in North Dakota and Minnesota, have been kind of a cool summer. Cool summer in the central plains into Nebraska and Iowa mean really big yields for corn and beans. Up here it becomes kind of a problem for us because we get a little behind in crop development. So one of the things I'm looking for and a bit concerned about is the potential for a frost, in particular early frost. If that happens, we're going to have a response in the bean market because there'll be quite a few acres that are affected.
What about long-term, Frayne? Is there a way that we could see a big bounce maybe mid-fall or into and through winter?
Yeah, the other thing, once we get through this harvest, as we get a little bit longer term, we'll be watching the export sales very closely to find out what kind of a pace we're going to be able to take this year. The other part we're going to be focusing on is how is South American acreage going to respond to these lower prices for both corn and beans. When we had really high corn prices, high bean prices, we saw a production response both in Brazil and Argentina. They increased their soybean acres, they increased their corn acres. Now with the retracement that we've seen in the markets, what's the production response going to be out of South America? The current expectation is you will see some shifting of corn acres back into soybeans, but we may actually see some soybean acres also leaving the market depending upon what part of the region you're talking about. So the first thing we'll be looking for is planted acreage, and of course later on in the season, by the time we get into March, April time period, then South America will begin their key reproductive stages and will be determining yield. So there's a couple windows where the market's going to be watching south very, very closely.
A general question on corn, as you look at that market, what are some things or selling strategies to consider as we move into a big 2014 harvest?
Yeah, the 2014 harvest is going to be very interesting, and I think we're going to have to kind of go back in time a little bit to be thinking about marketing strategies. I suspect what's going to happen is the first issue we're going to be faced is some storage space, storage issues. There's unfortunately still quite a bit of 2013 corn that hasn't been sold and hasn't been moved out yet. We're looking at a very large 2014 crop of both corn and beans. I think storage space is going to be at a premium this year. Typically what happens when we have a big crop, the basis levels at harvest tend to widen out. The cash market saying we don't need it right now will pay you or provide an incentive for you to store it and deliver it later. So I do think there will be some disincentives for delivering right off the combine. As we move after the crop has found a home, as we move into, I think in particular after the first of the year, we'll start to see a bit of a recovery and there might be some better pricing opportunities then.
Tell me about the current condition of spring wheat, Frayne.
Yeah, the spring wheat crop, we're just starting harvest now, which again is very late for us. Typically we're a little bit earlier in the season. The early spring wheat yields have been pretty strong. We are seeing some reports of scab. We also saw quite a bit of scab in the winter wheat. Now North Dakota doesn't have a lot of winter wheat acres, but because of the development stages, the winter wheat crop has had a lot of scab. So if you hear some reports about what's happening, recognize that that's primarily a winter wheat crop. We have seen some in the early spring wheat. The expectation right now is that as we move through harvest that hopefully the scab problem will dissipate, but yields are expected to be really good. I haven't heard anything yet about protein content and the quality issues, but we'll keep you posted.
I do want to ask you a question about rail transportation. It was hard to find earlier in spring, especially in parts of the upper Midwest. Do you have a sense of what those problems look like going into a record 2014 harvest?
Yeah, last year the Northern Plains in particular did have a problem with transportation and a delay in car deliveries. And we got backlogged a bit. Now the railroads have been able to catch up significantly. We're making some progress on it. The unanswered question right now is, given the size of the 2014 crop, not only nationally but also within this region, are we going to have a repeat of what happens last year? And again, that's open for debate right now. The railroads have made some improvements in infrastructure. They're doing their best to try and get caught up. But we're just going to have to wait and see if we have a repeat performance of last winter.